On to Tirreno Adriatico, stage 4. Absolute madness in the first 3 stages of Tirreno. Wout van Aert, Julian Alaphilippe, MVDP with the mean mug post-up yesterday. Absolute scenes. Would we have more action in stage 4? Well, yeah, we knew we would because of this parkour. 148 Ks, 2 HC climbs. The first one's not particularly scary. Passo Capanelli, 14 Ks at 4.5%. Long descent. Then they do the Prati di Tivo, 14.7 Ks at 7%. Mountaintop finish, Bernal, Pogačar, Higuita. How would Wout van Aert go defending his leader's jersey against the best climbers in the world, except for the best GC riders in the world, apart from Roglic, who isn't here? He went into the stage 10 seconds ahead of Alaphilippe, 20 seconds ahead of Pogačar, and must have been more on Bernal and co. Yeah, 30 seconds, 38 seconds on Bernal, 40 seconds on Thomas because they got held up by a crash on stage 3. Do you know what happened with the break, Benji? I think it was the YOLO guys again.
I completely forgot. I'm having a breakaway blackout at the moment. But yeah, I know that when we saw this parkour, I think we both agreed that it would be difficult for a breakaway to win. But on the other hand, the issue at hand is pretty clear. I would expect that INEOS was going to pace the entire last climb. That's what we mentioned. But we also don't have a leader in this race compared to Paris that has a team around him. Because Wout van Aert here does not really have any support properly. Like, Tobias Vos is a decent climber, but today, spoilers, he was really nowhere. I think that Wout van Aert basically had 0 riders left after the most important, when the most important phase even had to start in the race. And I think he's missing the like of a Vingegaard and Harbour perhaps that could support him on a climb like this. Why is it that they send such a team to support him to this race? Because, like, I know that Dumoulin was meant to ride this race.
We'll discuss that at the end. I might have to send you for a second coffee. I don't know what your caffeine resilience is like, but
I don't like coffee.
I might have to send you again. Okay. Well, you better get used to it because there's a rant coming. 53 Ks to go on this stage. The break had been given 8 minutes because no one could be bothered to chase it. It had Bice, Canola, Benjamin Tamar, Madvert, Schmidt, and Vignebo in the break. They'd been out there for quite a while. I think the first live images started like 80k to go. So Jumbo-Visma weren't too fussed about them. And to be honest, with the climb, and I think it might have been a headwind on the climb. Oh, actually, nah, I take that back. Based on what was to come, that couldn't have been possible. Yeah, they weren't really a threat on GC for anybody. Jumbo-Visma started to pace, but then it was UAE that was starting to be lent on with 50 Ks to go, and then they gradually eked that breakaway back, mainly because it was time for, well, if you're Pogačar, Benji, you have to be aggressive this stage. Like, was there any scenario where you thought UAE wouldn't try and set something up for Pogačar? Or even so, INEOS were 100% going to try something, right?
Yeah, indeed. And I think that Pogačar already knows before this final climb would start that he can spend his riders before the final climb, because the only way that INEOS can really put pressure on him is the same way that Jumbo tried it in the Tour last year with a train. And that gave him the capability of just following. And I think today they went for a different approach. We'll go into that for a second.
Yep.
But I think it still really played into the hand of Pogačar whether, how INEOS was going to play the final would really not influence Pogačar too much, I think, before this climb. It was my meaning, my opinion before the climb started.
So 23.5 Ks to go. They've eked. I've used eke now twice. They've reduced the gap by 3 minutes or so into 4 minutes 45. Mathieu van der Poel goes into the Gruppetto. He was like 100 to 1 for the stage, Benji, or 80 to 1 for the stage. Insane. Me and you thought he wouldn't even try and stay in the group because he's got the stage win options tomorrow. INEOS started pacing with 12 Ks to go. The break had 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And yeah, INEOS were pacing, but I don't think it was that high a pace, really. They were taking out a fair bit, but they weren't really dropping anybody. 7% climb, very regular. Giulio Ciccone attacked with 11.5 Ks to go. You picked him for the stage, Benji. Did you think it would be him going like this or trying to steal a march with like 1,500 to go?
Yeah, I picked him for the stage, but I decided to cut it out of the podcast that I did yesterday evening. So
Oh,
apparently nobody else will know that I picked Ciccone for the
well, now
stage.
they know.
So thanks for just
I think I
ruining
picked
that.
Alaphilippe for this stage.
I actually, just to remind you, I actually said that Pogačar would win the stage, but I also said that Ciccone would have a chance. So I went for a very, very easy pick there with Pogačar, but then again, it still had to be played out because a lot can happen. We have multiple INEOS riders that could bash onto Pogačar on this climb. But Ciccone went for that move, Nibali in the second group for his team. No clue what he was trying. I think it's just he was hoping that they would end in a situation, which I kind of understand, to be honest. If INEOS would pace on that climb, and let's say they have 3 riders left, that's Sivakov, Thomas, and Bernal on this climb, then Sivakov would be the third rider to pace.
Sivakov.
But yeah, exactly. So as a consequence, he might have thought, well, if INEOS is not going to pace, if Pogačar is basically roughly alone at this point because Maika was basically already gone, then I can do this. I can try and get away and see where I can go because these others can start to surplus a bit on the climb and attack each other and see where that goes. And yeah, I think that all kind of changed the moment when we saw the first rider attack from the group. And that was when INEOS was pretty much done pacing with their domestiques. Bernal decided to make a bit of a move. Wasn't the most explosive attack. And the others had time to think, should I respond to that or should I not respond to that? And we saw that Pogačar was the first to respond to that. Pogačar closed that down. Everybody was following that. Van Aert was dropping back in the group because he decided, let me try and do this perhaps in the same way that Dumoulin did a few years ago when he was doing climbing stages. Let the punchy guys get a bit of a gap and then crawl back slowly but surely. That worked out the first time. And I think Bernal realized, well, it's not my turn now. Let Thomas try again. Thomas was the next one to try that attack. And he actually first didn't get a gap, but then it actually did get a gap the next time he tried. And I think this was where Pogačar made a really clever play. He could have responded to Pogačar the second time. He did the first time around, but the second time he didn't. He allowed the gap from Thomas to Pogačar's group to extend a tiny bit, to become a good 10 to 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And that allows Pogačar to think, if I cross now and Bernal does not follow me, then it's a 1v1 instead of the 1v2 he had. And that's exactly what Pogačar did. He came out of the wheel and he just launched it. Nobody was really able to follow. Pogačar directly closed the gap to Thomas in like no time. He worked together with Thomas for a bit. Bernal was not pacing in the second group.
No working together. He just went on the front and started to ride his
true. Yeah, true.
Thomas was just
you're right.
On for dear life.
And in the second group, obviously, Bernal's not pacing because he's got Thomas at the front, so he can't really afford to do that. And it's all down to Van Aert in the second group then to start pacing. But Van Aert is not the climber that Pogačar is. Pogačar 1v1 in climbing versus Van Aert. I'm going to put my money on Pogačar every single time. And the gap slowly but surely kept growing, and there was the rider in that front too that was unable to follow Pogačar, which was Thomas. Thomas dropped from that group, and Thomas fell back to the second group. And that is where INEOS was basically already slaughtered. The game was over. Yeah, they fucked up INEOS there. Like, they tried something, but it didn't work out because I think Bernal should have perhaps reacted to Pogačar the last time he attacked to Thomas. Otherwise, this was always destined to fail. And it was really destined to fail indeed. The second group, Van Aert pacing there, catching Thomas, dropping plenty of really solid climbers. Crazy work. The gap from Pogačar extending out slowly but surely to that second group. I think there was one rider that still attacked from that second group, which was Simon Yates. And it was the only one that really got a gap, really, because the others, I think Landa tried to follow some attack at some point. And
Bernal tried to bridge to Pogačar before.
Yeah,
with 4Ks to go. And so Mads Schmitz, by the way, who'd been up the climb, the lone breakaway rider for Israel Startup Nation, he was caught with about 5 or 4Ks to go. I can't remember, the poor guy. Like, the gap was 2 minutes and then it was 0 once the GC guys started attacking and things got serious. But yeah, it was Bernal trying to close him. Alaphilippe got dropped from that group, Benji, whilst Wout van Aert was riding like his tempo. And yes, Simon Yates trying to bridge. I don't know what happened with him the other day. He's got to be the British Lutsenko, like hot and cold one day. It's crazy. But yeah, did you think Yates had a chance of catching Pogačar?
Perhaps get to his wheel. I didn't believe in it. But still, if he got to the wheel, I would still have my opinion that Pogačar would win a 1v1 sprint to Simon Yates at the end of a stage like this. And yeah, he got closer and closer. So at a certain point, going into the last 1.5 kilometers, he was actually getting relatively close to Pogačar. So was climbing at a faster rate than Pogačar was there. But he just couldn't get to the wheel, couldn't he?
The gap from the GC group to Pogačar, I think Wout van Aert had held it at like 15 for a bit, but after Yates' attack, it really started to go out. Wout van Aert's been on his own for almost the entirety of this climb, and it was really reminiscent of that Peresud stage, Benji, where Pogačar just gets the 10, 12-second gap, and then he rides his pace and just keeps gaining incrementally, and everyone else gets more and more tired, and then bang, 35 seconds, 45 seconds back to that group. Were you surprised no one was helping Wout van Aert? You've got Mikel Landa, Quintana, Almeida, Higuita in that group. No one's helping him. Surely they also want to limit their losses to Pogačar.
I kind of get it, though, because why do it yourself if someone else is pacing at a relatively high pace? The pace was high enough to drop Bernal off the wheel there, so the second time that Wout van Aert drops Bernal in the Tour last year as well. I think that perhaps Landa, he already tried to follow and couldn't follow, and because of that, I think that it's understandable that he doesn't make the move. Almeida seemed to be the strongest in the group. He tried to move forward for a bit, tried to set a bit of tempo at some point,
he
but
did help.
He eventually didn't help like enough to make any difference. Wout van Aert was dying for the entire last 2 kilometers for sure. I haven't seen his face suffer like that in a while, which is great to see. That sounds horrible.
Last kilometer. Pogačar's got a 5 to 6 second lead on Simon Yates, but I think Simon Yates, he wasn't able to bring it down under 5 or 6 seconds. He'd got there, but then he looked like he was completely on his limit and starting to go backwards as well. And that's the thing about Pogačar, Benji. I think if this climb went for another 20 minutes, Pogačar would have begun to gain more time on everybody and could have just held a similar pace. And Yates would have started to lose time. Maybe I'm delusional, but that's my view on it. I think Pogačar just seems to have reserves of energy to keep going. But he holds on. Yates is in the foreground, and Pogačar takes the stage win, stage 4, 6 seconds out of Simon Yates after an attack with 8 kilometers to go, I think. Or no, not that long. 6 kilometers to go after closing down Bernal. So incredible stage win from Pogačar. 6 seconds ahead of Yates, 29 seconds ahead of Sergio Higuita, Landa, and Quintana, who all surged out of the Wout van Aert group. Almeida 6th. Matteo Fabro 7th, Benji, on 42 seconds.
Love it.
Probably would have come top 3 at Paris-Nice. Simon Carr 8th. No, that's I'm being disingenuous. But he would have been a big help for Schachmann at Paris-Nice. Simon Carr for EF Nippo 8th on 42 seconds. What the hell? Wout van Aert, everyone's come around him after he's helped them. 9th on 45 seconds. Felt pretty bad for him, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. What a stage, Benji. Any big mistakes from anyone? Who are the big losers for the stage?
Jumbo. I think that Jumbo's biggest mistake is that they send a team to this that can in no way support Wout van Aert in any of the stages so far. I think only one stage they played a role. But ever since then, no support at all. And I don't get it. Vingegaard, he exists. Harper exists. Basically Vingegaard again. And Sepkus exists. All three are not racing Paris and Tirreno. Why? I'm not sure. Are they doing some kind of training camp somewhere? It's possible. I have no clue what is on the schedule of teams like Jumbo these days. But they could have done
as if
so
they couldn't have
much
swapped
for
Hess
Wout van Aert.
and bend it around.
Yeah. I think Vingegaard would have made a huge
surely
difference.
They could have swapped Kruijswijk and Hessing.
Yeah, but still, like, again, Vingegaard, I think, would be the biggest difference here. Someone like that, just one rider. You said 6 kilometers was when Pogačar caught Bernal and went on a solo ride. Caught Thomas and went on a solo ride. Bernal made the first move at 8 kilometers to go. From that second onwards, Van Aert was at the front of that group. 8 kilometers of climbing.
Yeah.
He had to do everything alone. And that's a lot.
Anyone would have cracked.
Exactly.
Like, he's basically having to one-on-one TT against Pogačar up a 7% climb for 6 kilometers after some surges with everyone on his wheel. Like, I know we're probably a little bit Wout van Aert fanboyish, Benji.
I disagree on that. I think that generally 100%, if Jumbo had support here, Wout van Aert would be in a position that he's head favorite for winning Tirreno right now.
Yeah, I agree. Because maybe he improves his position on a couple of the other stages. Maybe he gets some IS, intermediate sprints, and I think he saves. I don't think he ever keeps Pogačar's wheel on this stage. I think there's no chance. But 10 people don't think Kruijswijk, Vingegaard, or Harper would have just helped 10 seconds, 12 seconds, which they really matter. They will really matter when we get down to these GC gaps, because Wout van Aert is now 35 seconds behind Pogačar, same time as Agita. And I think if he was on 15, he'd be favourite for GC.
Yeah, I think so as well. Definitely looking at the next couple of stages, because the next stage, we'll go into it in deeper detail at the end of this pod, but the next stage is basically a hill stage with a similar possibility for Wout van Aert versus Van der Poel versus Alaphilippe once again. So he can get bonus seconds there. Let's say he gets the worst bonus second, the full seconds one. He gets 4 seconds back. That's on 41 in GC now, because I think he's on 45 right now. Was that right?
35 on GC.
35, sorry. He gets on 31 seconds then. Okay. Let's say the next stage, pretty flat sprint, relatively. He can get.
Let's say he takes 4 seconds. Let's say he takes 8 seconds across both.
27 in total then he's got behind after that, which means that in the time trial he won't get 27 seconds back most likely on Pogačar, but he can get 10 seconds back if it's a very good day for him and Pogačar doesn't have the best of his TTs, then it's possible. And 17 seconds, that's what Vingegaard would have made a difference, I think, if Vingegaard was pacing from 8 to 6 kilometers instead of Wout van Aert from 8 to 0 kilometers.
Yeah, it really doesn't make too much sense to me. Like, I get that Jumbo-Visma was saying, we're not coming into Tirreno with Wout van Aert for GC, but then inevitably he gets into the leader's jersey, and then they're like, we're going to ride for GC. Well then, if you're going to ride for GC and actually protect it, because like Van der Poel today was like, fuck this. I'll see you boys tomorrow. Jumbo weren't doing that. So, and I know he's got the jersey on his back, so there's, you got to defend it. But if you want to practice for the Tour, well, yes, you've got to practice with the Tour de France squad at Paris-Nice, but Wout van Aert's also going to the Tour. And Benji, you and I think very strongly that Wout van Aert will be in the leader's jersey, or if not, very, very close to the leader's jersey for the first 10 days of the Tour, at least the first week. And given what we've seen from Pogačar today at UAE Tour, back-to-back, like we've seen, Pogačar can TT, like he's legit, he's not a one-off. If you want to have a different strategy, it can involve Wout van Aert. Like how many, I haven't checked recently, but how many of the stages in the Tour de France have a 14K, 7% mountaintop finish? Not that many. There are some, and there are harder overall stages. There's a double Von 2 stage, but
Yeah, everybody keeps saying it's a double Ventoux stage, but the first one is not really the Ventoux you're used to seeing. It's a slower climb. It's a longer climb with lesser gradients. Yeah, you can't call it the double Ventoux in my opinion, even though it's called the Ventoux. It's a fake Ventoux.
How scared would you be if you're Jumbo-Visma with a 2 kilos lighter Wout van Aert full train of UAE and Pogačar lighting up a 20-kilometer, 5% climb with then a descent into the finish of about 20 kilometers? I'd be about 0 scared.
Yep, definitely with the descent afterwards. That changes a lot. Luzardiden will be more difficult.
That's the whole of the stages, Benji.
Yeah, Luzardiden is the one where I'm scared. Col du Port as well. Those two. And all the rest, I think, are very viable to keep Van Aert within a decent amount of margin from the likes of Pogačar in those stages. I think those two stages are the ones where I'm scared about. I think that in the first two-ish stages, there are 2 hill stages in the first week. I can't remember which ones because I totally forgot the parkour already. But Muur de Bretagne and such, Van Aert can definitely hang on. And that first one as well. Muur de Bretagne kind of feels like the first Dauphiné stage of last year. It's not the same climb at all. It's not the same stage at all. But they could ride it like that and just ride Van Aert in fourth wheel onto Muur de Bretagne and pace with Jumbo at the front of the group. And they could have him sprint at the end. And it would likely work out with Van der Poel competing as well. So won't be super easy.
Remember, the reason I'm saying all this, I don't know about Benji, but the reason I'm saying all this is not for Wout van Aert to win the Tour de France GC. It's for Jumbo-Visma to have their best chance of winning the Tour de France GC. And the best chance is to have Pogačar having to launch shit like today. And if he had to do something like today, massive performance, 0 help. Well, some help, but when it counted most, no real pacing from his team. Micah got dropped before Filippo Ganna. So he's having to do that all today. If Jumbo have a full team, he gains 15 seconds on Wout van Aert, or 20 seconds on Wout van Aert. Keeps Wout van Aert close. And Pogačar's having to try and distance Wout van Aert like that. All the while, Roglic would have been on Pogačar's wheel, sitting on the whole time, not pulling. Oh, they probably would pull. Nah, he won't be allowed to pull anymore, surely. And that's the point. Imagine today, Pogačar's pulling, and Roglic is on his wheel, and they maintain the gap with Wout van Aert behind. I think that's the perfect strategy for them, and would put the most pressure on Pogačar. But tomorrow's stage...
Wait. I'm just very much looking forward to the Tour de France, where we end up 10 days in, roughly 11 days, 12 days in, with Wout van Aert in yellow, Roglic in the same group, and on Sportza, the Belgian cycling channel, they start shouting, "Why is Roglic not pacing for Wout van Aert?"
It will happen.
Would be so funny.
That's happening. I think the big losers of today were INEOS. Like,
certainly,
we're talking. Really, today was a positive for Jumbo-Visma. Like, Wout van Aert proved he can stay close, even in like classic shape, quote unquote. Bernal getting dropped by Wout van Aert, Thomas completely blowing up. Is it a negative, Benji, or should INEOS be praised for actually trying, going full, and if you try crazy things, sometimes you blow up.
Sure, it happens. If you try crazy things, you blow up, but they're not good enough. And that's it. There's nothing more to add. Bernal is nowhere near a form where he can compete with Pogačar. And Thomas, I didn't believe in his capabilities. I didn't believe in his capabilities to beat Pogačar either. I think in the 2018 Tour was his peak, and I don't think he's going to get near that ever again.
Yeah, I think Bernal's never done Pogačar what's Bekele for 30 minutes below altitude. 1 hour, Col de la Loze, different story. I actually think, Bernal and Miguel Angel Lopez, that's their territory. But 35 minute climb like this, below altitude, that's Pogačar's different league. And Roglic is the same as Pogačar in my view. Tomorrow's stage, another banger. Stage 5 of Tirreno Adriatico that's been won. Each stage has been won by one of the big guns. 206 kilometers, first 100 Ks, a pancake flat. And then we have, this is a crazy stage. Listen to this. Over 10 or 12 ascents of a 600 meter 8% climb, a 1500 meter 10.1% climb, and then a staircase climb to Castel Fidardo with like 700 meters at 7%. I need to go look at the close up of this finale, Benji. It's what, 500 meters at 9%, then 500 meters at 15%, then 500 meters of 6%. I think. Oh, that's the climb they repeat. I don't think the finish is that hard. Alaphilippe tomorrow, my pick.
I don't know. I'm gonna go for Van der Poel on this one.
Okay.
Van Aert
I'm still a doubter. I'm an idiot.
Second bonus.
But do you think? I know Estrade in that one on the final climb he was able to launch, but this is the Imola course, right? It's the Imola course light, so Van der Poel and Van Aert should be okay, and in the finals, not so bad. What about Pogačar, Benji? Do you think tomorrow Wout van Aert has to attack and then, say, Alaphilippe and Van der Poel join him, work for them, and not gift, but work max so you can't even contest a stage win? That'd be my play.
It would be a play, but I don't think it's going to be so easy to drop Pogačar on this parkour. I think it's the one where it's possible. The only one that is left where it's really possible. It's the only one where he can hit Pogačar, and he'll have to do it tomorrow or the overall victory is lost, I think. So
yes. Tomorrow he has to try max, I think. Because 35 seconds, even with stage bonuses, is not going to be enough if Pogačar's TT is what we think it is. But Benji's gone MVP. I've gone Alaphilippe after he didn't climb as well today, but apparently the level was pretty crazy, although it's hard to say without wind. Like, people saying Pogačar did the best climbing performance since 1998, but that means that Simon Yates was 5 seconds off the best climbing performance in like 23 years, which I'm less inclined to believe, to be honest. I think there might have been a tailwind or something else. But any last thoughts on Tirreno Adriatico, Benji?
Wow. And it's going to continue being wow from the looks of it. So I'm looking forward to the next stage very much. I think for a fun ending, we put a bit of a poll on the community tab of our YouTube channel to ask you guys what you think about who's going to win Milano-San Remo. I think there's been like 1.4k votes on it so far. Van der Poel's winning it with about 60%. So it looks like everybody's a Van der Poel fan that watches this.
Yeah. And thanks for bearing with us as well. I hope you love Benji does a lot of those community posts. Just as a big shout out, I'd like to make publicly to Benji. He's working full time still. He's been editing the pod whilst I have for the ASO races, which I have the highlights rights for. So currently I wake up at about midday. I make the video. I put it up when you wake up in Europe. I go for a walk at 5 and then eat dinner, prep for the races, watch the races, record the pod with Benji at about 2 to 2:45, then try and get to sleep or do some admin or emails, go to bed at 4:30, and then rinse and repeat. Benji's doing the opposite.
Want to hear my fun story?
You're working full time and doing the editing.
So basically, I've got 1 hour to myself in the entire day, and I try to keep my workout a bit in check there. And the problem is, the moment that I'm done with everything is like 11 a.m. in the evening, which means that, well, there's like a 20-minute walk in my workout just to like having some steps throughout the day, because otherwise I'm sitting at a desk all day with work and with editing this. But try walking outside at 11 a.m. So I had the intelligent idea a few days ago to walk back and forth in my fucking living room 20,000 times to get to 20 minutes while listening to an audiobook. And it was quite fun. It's good, but it was stupid.
I mean, I know it's going to be very cliche, Benji, but this sounds like the perfect angle for a smart trainer company to sponsor two professional, or actually aspiring professional cycling pundits, so we can exercise while watching the races. But anyway, once I move to Europe, you'll never hear me complaining again because I can edit and things will be gravy. But hope you enjoyed the pods today. Thought we'd just give you a little bit of background on that, and you might hear some more announcements from us in the pipeline in the next week or so. Tirreno Adriatico Stage 5 recap. You got to tune in tomorrow. It'll be a banger. Ciao.